Mark Levin here. After any presidential election, I take time to reevaluate my own financial investments. That's why I continue to invest in gold for help with my financial protection. When it comes to gold, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're a top gold company in America, and that's who I turn to for my own gold purchases. Call them now at 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit. And see if you qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. And tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, no, I'm not taking any cabinet positions, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Not that I've been offered any, but some really good people the president is selecting. You know, Mika and Joe Scarborough, we've talked about them way too much here, and the reason we have, and they're in one of my books on freedom of the press, is because of the really poisonous and cancerous way they have talked about Donald Trump for almost, seems like a decade, I guess 7 or 8 years. And one of the things in on freedom of the press, which is 3 or 4 years old now, is the constant reference to Hitler and fascism and the things that Donald Trump is and would do if he's elected president. Now, of course, they're not alone. In fact, the entire lineup at MSLSD has been doing this. The entire lineup there. And there's a report out, Mr. Producer, that Comcast is looking to get rid of MSNBC. Did you see that? Let me read this to you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take our time. We're in no hurry here. We have 3 magnificent hours. 3 magnificent hours. Free Beacon, tired of losing. Why Comcast may cut ties with MSNBC. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you talk about an echo chamber. For the last 2 weekends, I've mentioned on Fox, and I have mentioned for the last 2 weeks here, that if Comcast doesn't clean up NBC and MSNBC, they will pay a corporate price for it. It's a publicly owned company. I've said the same thing about Paramount and CBS. I've said the same thing about Time Warner and CNN. And you go right down the list. Ratings are down and the partisan hosts are increasingly unhinged. Writes Andrew Stiles at the Beacon. Donald Trump's first term as president was the best thing that ever happened to MSNBC. The Democrat-aligned cable news channel enjoyed record ratings between 2017 and 2020. As anxious resistance liberals tuned in for group therapy sessions hosted by Joy Reid, Nicole Wallace, Rachel Maddow, and other anti-Trump commentators, whose increasingly unhinged rhetoric mirrored the deteriorating mental health of their viewers. Unhinged is right, and there's nowhere to go. Once you've lost your job at CNN or MSNBC, there's nowhere to go. It doesn't get any lower. They're going to hang around airports and try to get on the radar system. But after 4 years of sagging ratings under President Biden, amid a media landscape that has changed dramatically since 2016, there's a reason to doubt that MSNBC and its roster of relentlessly partisan grievance mongers can repeat that success in Trump's second term. A more pressing question, can the network even survive in its current form? Answer is no. But that's just me. The day since the election, MSNBC's ratings haven't seen a Trump bump. They've cratered. More on that shortly. But the ratings collapse comes as MSNBC, with its increasingly ugly rhetoric, denigration of Trump supporters, and ethically challenged host, has emerged as a major headache for parent company Comcast. Much as Fox Channel was a perennial problem for its then parent company, 21st Century Fox. I have no idea what the hell this guy's talking about in that regard. Or CNN was for its then owner, Time Warner, in Trump's first term. Furthermore, MSNBC's harsh partnership, and increasingly seen as a drag on its sister news operation, the supposedly nonpartisan NBC News, dogged by allegations of liberal bias, and continues to draw fewer viewers than rival ABC News. Now, Comcast's recent comments that it's considering spinning off its portfolio of cable channels suggest the company's owners, the billionaire Roberts family, would like to rid themselves of MSNBC and the accompanying bad publicity once and for all. Well, this guy was covering this thoroughly, and he does a decent job. Rather than quoting Puck's Dylan Byers, he would have quoted me. Right, Mr. Producer? He would have quoted me, warning Comcast that they can't keep this up. It's a publicly owned company, and investors are going to start showing up at these shareholder meetings. MSNBC is hardly the only liberal media outlet struggling to confront this grim reality. CNN is reportedly planning to fire hundreds of employees, scale back on ludicrously exorbitant anchor salaries. Who is John Berman, and why does he make more than $1 million a year? That is crazy. In an effort to cut costs and divert more resources to a digital operation to restore its once respectable brand. Well, digital, digital is where a lot of cable dollars are going, Fox and elsewhere and so forth, because people are dropping a lot of them, their cable subscriptions. The beleaguered Washington Post conducted a round of layoffs in 2023. That's another paper. And Bezos, even though he's a liberal, is trying to save that newspaper. The owner of the LA Times is trying to save that newspaper. And they've all gone hardcore left. And there's just nothing there. The Washington Post traffic has dropped 60% since its peaked in April 2020, when lefty readers flocked to the website in droves for anti-Trump COVID updates. But there's a reason to believe that MSNBC is uniquely ill-suited to bounce back in the post-Biden era. The network's top personalities exude all the traits many Democrats argue have caused the party to lose touch with normal Americans. Sneering condescension, inscrutable woke vocabulary, tendency to embrace bizarre conspiracy theories, and view every political problem through the lens of patriarchal white supremacy. I mean, Joy Reid, as I've said, for several years now? Just a disgusting disgrace. Their stable of talent is rife with individuals tainted by scandal of some kind. Let's take a look. Rachel Maddow. Is this boring or is this interesting? I think it's interesting, don't you, Mr. Producer? Rachel Maddow, MSNBC's premier host, is now making about $30 million a year. How do I get that job? What do I do? Does it turn into a leftist kook? $30 million a year to work 1 day a week. A deal that's become an increasing source of embarrassment for former boy wonder Cesar Conde, the NBC Universal News Group chairman, who was somehow suckered into approving the arrangement. Over the last 8 years, during the period to her semi-retirement, Maddow has sought to justify her astronomical paycheck by pushing a spurious welter of conspiracy theories. We have the Russia collusion thing as a perfect example. And it was constant. Maddow's years of credulous on-camera detective work, quote-unquote, being thoroughly discredited, Conde decided to pay her more to work less. Earlier this year, Maddow produced her first documentary, shamelessly titled From Russia with Lev, about Lev Parnas, the obscure Ukrainian figure who served 20 years in prison for making illegal donations to Trump's campaign. We're still waiting for NBC's disinformation reporter, Brandy Zadronsky, to turn her attention to Madoff's Russia reports. Then there's Al Sharpton. The hell does he make? See what? The formerly obese racial agitator who promoted the Tawana Broadley rape hoax and incited an anti-Semitic riot in Crown Heights, they write, has found a lucrative home at MSNBC, collecting what's believed to be a high six-figure to low seven-figure salary to struggle to read the teleprompter on his weekend show, Politics Nation. He frequently appears elsewhere on the network as an expert on racial grievances and combating anti-Semitism. Seriously? And it goes on. He recently orchestrated a $500,000 donation from Kamala Harris, her campaign, to his nonprofit weeks before conducting a softball interview. Joy Reid. I'm not going to read them all because the conga line of reprobates is long. Considered by many cable television observers to be MSNBC's new standard bearer in light of Madow's near total absence, Joy Reid is believed to make about $3 million a year. Must be the man, huh, Mr. Producer? Must be the system. She uses her MSNBC platform to spew unchallenged racially charged bile at the same time as she puts one foot in her mouth after the other. Last week, Megyn Kelly called Reid racist. Say what? Last week? How about the last 5 years? I've been calling her racist and a bigot. I'm not reading this anymore. This guy's not worth it. Nicole Wallace, disaster. Stephanie Rule, awful. Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski. Jen Psaki they hire, which is crazy. And it goes on and on and on. It is Chris Hayes is another loser. I believe he used to write for The Nation, but I could be wrong, which is about as radical left as it gets. They probably love that publication in Russia. It was on the wrong side of the Cold War. So I read this piece. There's nothing new here. It just kind of sums things we've been saying over the years. This is really a MSNBC. It's just a so-called platform for never-Trumpers, for un-American leftists, for a whole host, as I've said, of reprobates. And we've been putting pressure on Comcast here behind this microphone, on Blaze and on Fox, to do something about it. You may not know that, Andrew Stiles, to do something about it. And hopefully, and apparently, they will. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by a quarter. Do you know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you can even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. All right, let's go. Joe and Mika Scarborough, Sacklin Vanzetti. Here's a little montage, Hat Tip Fox, Scarborough trashing Trump. And this could go on for days, actually. Cut 16, go.
The retweeting of neo-Nazi videos, Charlottesville. I could go on and on. What he said about majority black countries. That is tearing more at the fabric of America.
He's so twisted everything. He's talking about these S countries. It wasn't about black countries per se. The Charlottesville thing, we were the first one to go through that at length. I remember sitting in my studio in Florida with you, Mr. Producer. You were in New York, parsing through every single syllable of what he said and playing it. Remember all that? And all the other conservatives were standing by, shaking in their boots, wetting their pants. All of a sudden, you do that, and then the others pick it up. Go ahead.
Than attacks on the Twin Towers did. We rebuilt from that. We became stronger because of that. But this seems to me a far graver threat to the idea of America.
If Republicans continue this line of thinking, if they continue their support for Donald Trump, they needn't fool themselves. A second Trump administration would destroy the Department of Justice, would destroy the FBI. This is not a reach. I could go back and talk about Nazi Germany, and I do it without any concerns whatsoever. And if people can't start drawing the parallels, well, you're just stupid, or you have your head in the sand, or you're one of them. When you look at a Republican nominee, a potential Republican nominee that's talking about terminating the Constitution, he said, to terminate the Constitution, arrest political opponents using the Justice Department, assassinate generals that weren't sufficiently politically loyal to him, saying that he was going to take the FCC and bring it in to the White House, and he would decide what networks were on and what networks were not on.
Man, it goes on and on. I'm not going to pull out on Freedom of the Press and read you the quotes, which are actually a lot worse than that so-called montage. But here they were today on MSLSD. Their ratings are really in the tank. And all across MSNBC, all across CNN, just really, really in the tank. Cut 15, Mika Brzezinski and Joe. Go ahead.
Over the past week, Joe and I have heard from so many people, from political leaders to regular citizens, deeply dismayed by several of President-elect Trump's cabinet selections, and they are scared. Last Thursday, we expressed our own concerns on this broadcast and even said we would appreciate the opportunity to speak with the president-elect himself. On Friday, we were...
You see, they're talking to like 95,000 people, give or take. Did you know that, Mr. Producer? It's like 2 stadiums. That's it. Talking to themselves, essentially. You know, a footnote here. Mr. Producer remembers this when I started out as a syndicated show. And we had 5 radio stations, WABC and 4 others. We're about an hour in, and then it occurred to me, nobody was listening to the show. Remember that, Rich? I mean, they all had other things going on. Basketball, whatever it was. 5 stations. It was early on. We didn't have the contract we have now. And we were literally not playing anywhere. And I'm doing a radio show. Well, that's what it must feel like on MSNBC every damn day. Go ahead.
To do just that. Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit. And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
What we did agree on was to restart communications. My father often spoke with world leaders with whom he and the United States profoundly disagreed. That's a task shared by reporters and commentators alike. We had not spoken to President Trump since March of 2020, other than a personal call Joe made to Trump on the morning after the attempt on his...
And I don't much care, to be perfectly honest with you. President Trump said, it sounds like they came here and we had this big, meeting and so forth and so on. He said they begged essentially to come here. I let them come here and we spoke. And pretty much Mika was very pleasant, and that was that. But there is more here. I'll get to it in a moment. The markets are volatile. They're shooting up wildly only to drop without warning. The Fed just cut rates yet again, this time by a quarter point. Why? Because the Federal Reserve is not confident the economy is strong. In fact, last month only 12,000 jobs were created, all of them in the government. That's why I'm telling you again, diversification is crucially important. And diversification with gold is what I do. And the company I use, and I've used many, the best one is Advantage Gold. Call them now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help you diversify your investments and take advantage now. Now, gold has been helping to protect and grow wealth for people for thousands of years. And in these times, it can be more crucial than ever. When it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold. They're one of the top gold companies in America. They're who I turn to when I purchase gold. Call them now, 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000 now for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help you with your investment portfolio, a.k.a. your bank accounts, your paycheck. And when you do, you could qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Folks, don't wait. Call them now, 800-900-8000, and tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
If the world seems so confusing, Mike will be glad to clear that up for you. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
So you see what's happening at MSNBC, absolute chaos and turmoil, as it should be. They need to clean the place out. As go the Democrat Party, so goes MSNBC, and so goes CNN. CNN's going to be laying off, quote-unquote, hundreds. Its ratings are plummeting. It's because they don't even dress up as quasi-news organizations. And it's one thing to have advocates on. Look, we have advocates in talk radio for sure. We have advocates on Fox and so forth. But the news divisions are the news divisions. That's separate. And it's separate at Fox. It's not separate on MSNBC or CNN. You can't tell one from the other. And they're spewing the Hamas statistics, and they're spewing all the hate that comes out of the Democrat Party and the others when it comes to Trump. I mean, they're a mirror image of each other. That is, the Democrats and these various media outlets. And the newspapers are dying. The Washington Post is close to dying. If they didn't have a man who's one of the richest men in the world backing them up, it would be dead. If they didn't have a extraordinarily rich man backing up the LA Times, that paper would be dead. If they didn't have a billionaire from Mexico, among others, that put money in the New York Times, that newspaper would be dead. It's not just because of technology. It's because people are sick of it. They're sick of it. If you look at network news programs, their ratings are so much lower than they were 5-10 years ago. They just are. They are. And that's why I laugh when they attack conservative talk radio. We just had a Pew study that said there's been no change from 2020 to 2024 on the big shows like mine and Hannity's. None. And we're up against everything. My show, time-wise, I'm up against all the sports, the playoffs, the big games. I'm up against dinner. I'm up against all this. And nobody else is during the course of a show. From 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern time. I know we run other times throughout the country, given your time slots. 3 to 6 on the West Coast and so on. But it is the toughest time slot there is for half the country. And here we are, pounding the hell out of all our competition. One day I won't be here. Then the radio companies will see what happens from 6 to 9. It will plummet. No brag, just fact. Because we've had stations ask us back. Because we've seen what took place before. This is no credit to me. It's credit to you. If I decide to retire 6 months from now, I don't know, how many are you going to turn on your AM radio station from 6 to 9 p.m. on the East Coast? I'm guessing not a ton. Or if I decide to retire and just do a podcast, how many of you will stop listening to radio, at least during this timeline, and shift over to the podcast? I'm guessing a whole lot of you. That will be tested one day in the future, maybe the not-so-distant future in one market or another. And so be it. It's the way the cookie crumbles. Now, Trump confirms plans to use military to deport migrants after declaring national emergency, New York Post and other outlets. President-elect Donald Trump confirmed Monday he would declare a national emergency to deport illegal immigrants using military assets once he steps back into office early next year. Trump made the statement on Truth Social, responding to a post from Judicial Watch's Tom Fitton, citing reports that he would do so. Tom's a great guy, by the way. Now, this is exactly what Dwight Eisenhower did in the 1950s. They used to like Eisenhower. They called him a moderate Republican. He worried about the military-industrial complex. He countered Joe McCarthy. He countered the quote-unquote right-wingers in his party. But here they hate his guts. And you know what they called this operation? It's not nice. It's a pejorative, and I don't like it. They called it Operation Wetback. That's the history. I would never use it, and I didn't. Cesar Chavez, very famous, was the leader of the Farm Workers Union, trying to organize all these farm workers, particularly those from Central and South America. He didn't succeed very well, but they had strikes. He attacked what he called wetbacks. He was absolutely opposed to illegal immigration. Absolutely opposed to it. And in fact, many of his members would join with others to monitor the southern border and report when illegal aliens were coming across to back then the INS, Immigration Naturalization Service. This is all in my book, Liberty and Tyranny, of 15 years ago, on the chapter on immigration. It was a time the Democrat Party opposed illegal immigration. He marched against illegal immigration, famously so with Ralph Abernathy, Southern Christian organization that Martin Luther King once headed. He was Martin Luther King's right-hand guy, and obviously he became head of it after Martin Luther King was horribly assassinated. And you know who was in that march? Walter Mondale and Eugene McCarthy, all the leftists. They were talking about how it undermined the American citizen or the naturalized citizen from Central and South America, how it undermined their incomes and their ability to unionize and so forth. Now they switched about 15 years ago. Harry Reid was also among those who opposed illegal immigration. They flipped because they figured we have a better way. We'll bring in as many illegal aliens as we can. They'll have children. We'll have quote-unquote birthright citizenship. We'll have chain migration. We'll do everything we can to eliminate voter ID. We'll do everything we can to eliminate all the protections against fraudulent voting. And we'll take over the party will take over the country that way. And that's the decision they took. And that's why you find so many Hispanics all over the country, particularly in the border towns, who voted for Trump. Overwhelmingly. You're talking about towns with 80, 90, 95% Hispanics that went majority, and not small majorities, on the border for Trump because of the consequences they feel as a result of illegal immigration. You know, I've said it before. People seem to think you use the word Hispanic or Latino. No. If you're from Peru, you're not from Chile. If you're from Chile, you're not from Honduras. If you're from Honduras, you're not from Bolivia. And I could go on and on and on. Most of these people, like people from all the rest of the world, you call in a town you're European. They go, what are you talking about? I'm an Italian. Right? And we can go down the list. So people don't identify per se as Hispanics or Europeans or Africans. If you're from Africa, you're from a particular, wait a minute, what do you mean Africans? I'm from Nigeria. Or I'm from many other countries there. Same with the Middle East. So you're from the Middle East. Excuse me. I'm from Lebanon, or I'm from Israel, or I'm from wherever. Never in the Middle East. Obviously, it's a region or a continent, depending on what you're referring to. We got it. But that's not how it works. People have ancestors. They have allegiance. They have blood in these countries, in these communities. I've talked about this before. Hispanic was a word that was created by the census at the direction of Richard Nixon. He wanted an ethnic group to counter blacks. And so he and they created this nomenclature, not the word itself, but nomenclature to represent all people from Central and South America and parts of the Caribbean. But that's not really how people react and respond. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. So what Trump wants to do is what Eisenhower did. And so they're going to want you to think it's so horrific, it's so extreme. Let me tell you what happens if he doesn't have mass deportation. You can multiply the number of illegal aliens here by 20. Because by the time chain migration is over, and you got to kill that chain migration. I talked about that on TV. I've talked about it behind this microphone on Blaze. What's 20 times 20? If you have 20 million illegal aliens here, and each one brings 2, you have 40 million. Right, Mr. Producer? You're good at math. If you bring 20, how many do you have? 40 million. No, if you have 2 times 20, you have 40 million. 2 times 2 is 40 million. 2 times 20, you're going to have 400 million. 20 million times 20 is 400 million. The country will cease to exist. So if this deportation doesn't take place in the next 4 years, it's never going to take place. It'll be too complicated. It'll be too difficult. So of course this should be done. When you consider there's 500,000 people in this country roaming the streets who have criminal backgrounds of one sort or another, some murder, rape, other violent crimes, yes, deportations. And Tom Homan has said we're going to start with them and work our way down. Now you have Democrat governors and Democrat mayors who say we're going to protect these people. They don't even know who these people are. They haven't been vetted. They haven't worked with the federal government. They haven't worked with foreign governments. So that fat slob governor of Illinois, or that creepy governor from Massachusetts, or that jerk from New Jersey, the rest of them, you know, we're going to protect our people. They're our residents. Hey, jerk. You don't have the authority to do that. But they're taking resources away from your citizens, the ones who are here legal. They don't care because they know eventually there'll be a payoff for the Democrat Party and for them. Eventually there'll be a payoff. So President Trump is going to do an emergency order, national emergency, the use of the military, is exactly what Dwight Eisenhower did. And last time I checked, he wasn't a fascist, he wasn't Hitler, he wasn't a racist, he wasn't any of these things. In fact, he killed a fascist, a racist, and Hitler. So don't be persuaded by these people. Don't allow all this static, all this propaganda from the left, from these NGOs, from their dying media, and the rest of them, to persuade you that there's something inhumane about this. It is absolutely humane to remove these people. Absolutely. Or the country won't survive. And they have to be removed thanks to Biden and Harris. And now we have to try and find these women who've been sold into sex slavery. That's a very arduous task. We have to try and find hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied minors, again, under Biden and Harris and the Democrats. I don't remember these Democrat governors. I don't remember this conga line of reprobates speaking out against slavery on the border or demanding to find out where all these kids went. I don't remember that. They certainly haven't protected the women and the children, have they? Oh, they talk tough. They talk tough. But they're on the wrong side of this. They're not righteous. They're not humane. They're quite the opposite. These are the Democrats, these governors, who give life and breath and sustain the cartels that have made billions of dollars off of this. These are the Democrat governors who tolerate the flow of deadly chemicals into this country like fentanyl. And by the way, weapons too. Weapons too. These Democrat governors, these Democrat mayors who say they're going to protect these people aren't protecting a damn person. They haven't protected anybody, and they're not going to, let alone the people in their own cities and towns. This must be done. Thanks to Biden and Harris and the Democrat Party, the border was wide open. Now we have to deal with the results, or the country will never be the same again. It simply won't. And I mean that in an extremely negative way. Everybody hasn't been touched by the consequences of this open border, but more and more Americans are being touched. And America, we put our foot down when we voted. We want people deported. We want that border secure, like any normal country. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by 1/4. Do you know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you can even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. I want you folks to know something as these Democrats and their media try and line up and pick off some of these cabinet officers. That's why I said I'm not going to support picking off any of them, whether I like one or not. This is the team that President Trump has chosen. This is the team, as he keeps building it, that he believes will help him govern and get across the results from the promises he made. We can't rely on old Washington. We can't rely on 2/3 of the Senate that wasn't even up for the voters. You know, the incumbents had a very, very bad night on November 5th. Very bad night from San Francisco right across the country. Right across the country. So they have to do whatever they have to do to break the blockades. But we have a job to do here, too. This is why we're different on this show. We're different from some podcasters, different from some radio hosts, different from TV hosts. We're going to monitor this. We will have our Levin surges as necessary to push them across. He's just decided he wants Sean Duffy to head the Department of Transportation. If that's who he wants, it's fine by me. Well, does he have any expertise in the Department of Transportation? You know, unless you've been around Washington for 50 years and worked at the Department of Transportation, I don't even know what that means. Does he drive a car? Does he take a train? Does he take a plane? Has he been to an airport? That's pretty good expertise, don't you think, Mr. Producer? Buttigieg? Exactly. Had absolutely zero. Nothing. Blinken had all this background on the Hill and all this Ivy League school stuff. He was the biggest disaster Secretary of State that I can think of ever. So we can go through all this, and we might have to. But that's my view. But come on, Mark, we could have done better than this. But what do you mean we? He's the president. This is who he wants. But what I was going to say is when you look at any Republican president who gets elected, they face this, believe it or not. I don't care how milquetoast they are, like the Bushes. Reagan was tough. He couldn't, he had to fight for all of his, too, and he had some recess appointments. And the recess appointment is perfectly constitutional, by the way. The court's placed a limit on, I think it's 2 years, but nonetheless, it does happen. It is in the Constitution. It's not constitutional. It is. It's in the Constitution. Because they knew that everybody wouldn't get along and so forth and so on. So it's in the Constitution. By the way, we've expanded our podcast. In addition to this program, which we have on our podcast, in addition to the wonderful International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we've now added Hillsdale College. My brother of over 40 years, Dr. Larry Arnn, the president of Hillsdale, will be doing a podcast with him, too, these partnerships that we've developed to expand their reach, to expand our network. It's an idea that I had that I wanted to put in place, and here we are. It's absolutely fantastic. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. What are you eating? A steak sandwich, Mr. Producer? Hello, my brothers and sisters. I am here. I am not drinking beer, and I'm in your face. Is that the way it goes? Something like that. It's a pleasure to have you. And they're still trying to steal that Senate race in Pennsylvania. Now, what's the governor doing? Josh Shapiro. Josh, who was busy undoing himself during the selection process. He so desperately wanted to be the vice presidential nominee, and people who are quite delusional with excessive imaginations actually believe he was on the ticket. Maybe they could have won Pennsylvania. No, this is called a wave. Josh could not have delivered Pennsylvania because, truth be told, Josh is one of the least effective governors in his short stint in Pennsylvania ever, in terms of passing legislation and so forth. And as a matter of fact, even though the Senate was Republican in Pennsylvania, very slim, as you can see, it's a very tight state in terms of party, the Republicans took back the House there, the Assembly. So the Republicans now control the legislature. But they also won the Senate seat. So we have Democrats, and we talked about this last week, but we have Democrats in the county, Bucks County. And the way the counties work, 67 counties, my old state, they have county commissioners. And by state constitution, each county has 3 commissioners, 2 from one party, 1 from the other. Bucks County's 2 Democrats, 1 Republican. So the Republican says, no, you guys are counting, you're counting ballots that the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania said are illegal. Now, keep in mind, those of you who've listened, you know, the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania is made up of 7 justices. They're all elected statewide, 5 of whom are Democrats, 4 of whom are radical Democrats, 1 of whom is kind of on the fence. That court ruled that you cannot count a ballot that is not properly signed and dated on the envelope. And so the commissioners, the 2 Democrats in Bucks County, and there's another county too, by the way, have announced, we're not going to listen to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. We don't believe in precedent. We're going to do whatever the hell they want. And they're counting these ballots that are illegal ballots. They're not only illegal ballots under state law, they're illegal ballots under the ruling of the Supreme Court upholding state law. And the court just ruled again today. It's illegal. Don't count the ballots. And those commissioners thumb their nose again. Now, it seems to me the court ought to enforce its rule. Enforce its rule. These people should be held in contempt. They should issue an order for Bucks County, hold them in contempt. They don't listen, throw them in jail. That's the way judges are supposed to work. You don't get to just keep counting. Now, everybody knows this. So where's the governor of Pennsylvania? Nowhere. He didn't tell his fellow Democrats to cut it out. He didn't tell Casey, you need to give it up, brother. He didn't do any of it. He's hiding like Joe Biden in his basement. Just let the count proceed. So now they're having a recount. And this is Mark Elias, the slip and fall little bastard lawyer. The Brian Selter lookalike, although he looks worse than Selter, quite frankly. He's behind this. Schumer's behind this. And apparently the governor's behind it. Now, this guy wants to run in 2028 for president. They're trying to steal an election. So where are CNN and MSNBC? Where are the television networks? Where are the New York Times and the Washington Post talking about accepting the results of an election? They're nowhere. On the Sunday shows, not a single Sunday host asked a Democrat, why aren't you accepting the results of an election? Now, what about this? Shouldn't people be prosecuted for challenging this? Isn't that what they said? You're trying to change the outcome of an election. I heard this over and over again over the last several years, didn't you? Literally counting illegal ballots in order to try and put Casey in there. The Republicans never did that. The Republicans didn't do that, and yet some of them were charged. Some of them had to plead. Now, this is a miscarriage of the electoral process and justice going on in the state of Pennsylvania. I hope when our guys take over the Department of Justice, they're going to do a thorough investigation into Pennsylvania and see who tried to steal that election. And I want to know about this Governor Josh Shapiro. Joshy, where are you, Joshy? Now, Fetterman was asked about this from Jake Tapper the other day. And say what you will about Fetterman, there's a lot he does that I don't like. He's a leftist, but he's good on other things, too. But what he is an honest man, like him or not. Cut 14, go.
What's your response to that Democratic official deliberately announcing that they're going to defy court orders and count these provisional ballots?
They're going to defy the state Supreme Court. It's not just any court. It's the High Court of Pennsylvania that's in charge. Telling them to cut it out. Now twice. Democrats telling Democrats, cut it out. And they won't. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not going to chase every kinds of quotes, things like that, because I think you just pointed out that it refers to about 115 ballots, and that's not going to have an impact on this race.
We don't know how many ballots it refers to. Maybe it's 10,000 ballots. But isn't it the fact that they've been ordered not to do this and they're doing it? Isn't that the issue, America? Now, let's take him at his word. Let's say it's 115 ballots. So why are they doing this? Because they've been hoping beyond hope that they can find about 9,000 ballots. That's all they need. Go ahead.
So where we are now? It's very, very close. And I guarantee you, if Dave McCormick were in the opposite situation where he was down 15 to 17,000 votes, he would absolutely want to have every last vote counted.
No, he would not want illegal votes to count, Fetterman. I thought I liked this guy more than I do, Mr. Producer. Maybe I don't like him at all. And what are we talking about here? Because he didn't do that when he lost the primary to Oz. They had a recount, but he didn't demand that you count illegal ballots in defiance of a court order, particularly the Supreme Court. So we already know this, Fetterman, so you're full of crap. Go ahead.
And Bob Casey has never claimed fraud. And I think it's really interesting now, all of the Republicans.
All right, I've had enough of this guy, actually. He's not that sharp, and he's not that bright. He's right every now and then. But you know what they say about a clock is right twice a day. So there you are. Bob Casey should call an end to this, but he won't. The governor should call an end to this, but they won't. The governor should at least tell the board to follow what the court said, but he hasn't. And by the way, neither is Fetterman. And neither has the Secretary of State in Pennsylvania, who was so quick to testify against all the people in Pennsylvania about how he was pressured and all the rest of it. That little jerk. This is why we talked about, and callers to this program talked about, we need enough votes to make sure that we can overcome their cheating. Now, I would like to ask all the broadcast networks out there, I'd like to ask all their so-called reporters, I'd like to ask all their so-called executives issuing their little memos before the election, does this trouble you? Does it trouble you? Because I haven't read any memo, I haven't heard anything about Democrats stealing an election right there in the face of the state Supreme Court, which is a majority Democrat. Not a word from anybody. That's why the media are dying. That's why they're dying. American people aren't stupid. We see this. Schumer's trying to hold on. What a grotesque excuse for a human being. Truly. Schumer's trying to hold on. Hold on to what? Because he's looking at 2 years from now. He's looking at 2 years from now. Now listen to this. Here's Hakeem Jeffries on Meet the Depressed. Do you notice they keep, and I keep talking about the same people on these Sunday shows. I don't get it. Over and over. They're so wrong. They're so out of sync with the American people. No fresh voices. It's the same damn thing. Hakeem Jeffries. About Trump's cabinet appointments. Kristen Welker is the host at Meet the Depressed. Cut 11, go.
Leader Jeffries, do you agree that she's a Russian asset?
That is Tulsi Gabbard, a Russian asset. Do you agree that she's a Russian asset? Go ahead.
Here's what I have to say about several of the nominations that have been made by the incoming president.
Guess he's not intending to answer that question. Go ahead.
Wasserman Schultz was referring to. The incoming president, throughout the campaign, promised the American people that we would have the best economy, the best border security, and the best administration possible. The question that has to be asked, is this the best that we can do in the context of...
No, it's not. We got to have, we need a Tim Walz, don't you think, Mr. Producer? Or a Kamala Harris. Now, there's a presidential candidate, a vice presidential. We're not even talking about the Department of Widgets or anything. No. So the best the Democrats could come up with to offer you and we, the American people, was Walz, W-A-L-Z, not Waltz, Walz, and Harris. And the best they could come up before that was Biden and Harris. And now they're asking questions about the cabinet secretaries. And as Mr. Producer said, what about Buttigieg? What did he have to offer the country? I don't have the foggiest idea. Blinken sold out our country, sold out Israel, left and right. Is that the best they could do? Seriously. You got Merrick Garland over there who's politicized the Department of Justice. Now these guys are going to pass judgment on Trump's nominees? Seriously? Is this the best we can do? Is this the best we can do? As they pack the courts with every left-wing kook they could think of. Now, all of a sudden, they're Solomon. They want to know, what kind of person you're going to nominate, how good are they going to be? And I love it. Some of these attacks on Gates. Everybody knows I'm not a Gates fan. But if Trump wants him, Trump wants him. Right, Mr. Producer? That's the way it is. That's the way it is. But that's the party that backed Bill Clinton, who was accused of rape, molesting women, and not one, a serial pervert. But that was okay. He was their presidential candidate twice. They elected him twice. Nothing wrong with that. Paula Jones, they mocked her. They made fun of her. George Stephanopoulos, that little jerk over there at ABC News, he headed the war room that smeared her. Oh, now we got to pass judgment on these things. We really do. He promised. Shut the hell up. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, have you ever thought about what charities and causes you give your hard-earned money to? Pure Talk, my cell phone company, supports veterans. As a veteran-led company, that's their passion project. And that's why Pure Talk has slashed $10 million in veteran debt. That's why they donate tens of thousands of dollars every month to help prevent veteran suicide. That's why they donate $50,000 to Micro Works, providing scholarships to veterans learning the trades after active duty. Now, isn't that a company you can get behind? Time to jump ship from these other three guys. There's a better option. Pure Talk gives you the same great coverage, America's most dependable 5G network, for half the cost. And you'll be supporting a company that is helping our vets. It's a win-win. Dial pound 250. Say keyword Mark Levin. You'll be connected to Pure Talk's U.S. call center. That's right. They invest in American jobs to better serve you. And remember, they're half the price of the big three. Go to puretalk.com/Levin today. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to a company that invests in American jobs to better serve you. Again, go to puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk, America's wireless company. Telling you about today and yesterday, the Sunday show. So Adam Schiff is a new senator from California. Congratulations, California. Just elect the biggest a-hole maybe on the planet. And, of course, he's on CNN yesterday. You see, CNN and MSNBC take the worst of the worst, and they give them a platform. And they give them a platform over and over and over again. Why Adam Schiff? There's many people you can choose who never get time on TV. Why do you pick pretty much the same people? Chris Murphy, this guy Chris Coons, Adam Schiff, Hakeem Jeffrey. Aren't there other people? I mean, you had a whole lot of them up there. Still a lot of Democrats left, unfortunately, on Capitol Hill. You can speak to so many of them, but they don't. They speak to individuals on the Democrat side that reinforce their own ideology. That is the ideology of the person questioning them. 90% of the time. 90% of the time. I'm going to prove it to you. Here's Chris Murphy. This guy's a real piece of you-know-what from Connecticut. On MSNBC today. Cut one, go.
My worry is that Donald Trump was telling the truth when he refused during the debate to say he wants Ukraine to win the war. It may be that Donald Trump wants Russia to win the war. And
see, this is what we get. This constant Russia collusion. Donald Trump was tough on Russia. He was tough on Putin. He was tough on the oligarchs. He cut off their oil pipeline, the gas pipeline, rather, which was really crucial to them. He put sanctions in place against these oligarchs. He did more to arm the Ukrainians before he left office than Obama sent them blankets. And yet, look at the way they talk about him. Look at the way he treated him, like he's some sympathetic figure for Putin. No, he's not. He believes in talking to these people. Let me give you an example. He spoke to that piece of you-know-what in North Korea. He speaks to these people, and he was once asked, why do you talk to these people? You know what he said, Mr. Producer? Well, who else am I going to talk to? That's who they are. I can't fix that. I can't change them. But it doesn't mean I'm their friend. It doesn't mean I'm going to acquiesce to whatever they want. I've got to talk to them. That's his mindset as a businessman. And our country was safer under him than any day under Biden. He knows what he's dealing with. He's not a fool. Chris Murphy's a fool. He's the clown. Go ahead.
Hand Ukraine to Putin because
he's not going to hand Ukraine to Putin. There is absolutely no basis for a comment like that. None. Zero. And yet there's Chris Murphy, newly elected Democrat from Connecticut. He's no Joe Lieberman. He's not. He is the worst of the worst. He's the worst of the worst. And they keep putting him on MSNBC. This is why MSNBC is a useless carbon footprint. Useless carbon footprint. Then they bring on Schiff on CNN. There's no escaping when you watch CNN or MSNBC, or you watch the network Sunday programs, or if you dare to read the New York Times and the Washington, there's no escaping this. There's no escaping it at all. So here's Schiff. Cut two. Go.
You were censured in the House last year for, in their view, holding positions of power during the Trump presidency as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. And according to them, quote, abusing this trust by saying there was evidence of collusion between Trump's campaign and Russia. And I wonder if you are feeling at all, introspective at all, about that was, according to the Mueller report and according to your Republican colleagues, an overstatement. And I wonder if you think in any way you help set the table for these disruptions.
Now, isn't that interesting, the nature of his question? We'll have to monitor this, because I don't think any of these people have actually changed. I think they're doing some kind of a fan dance to try and work their way through what's taken place. But go ahead.
First of all, it wasn't an overstatement. There is evidence of collusion. The Trump campaign manager...
So he continues to lie. There was no collusion. There are criminal investigations into it by Mueller. There were congressional investigations. They had a clear field in the House. There's not any evidence of any kind anywhere that there was any collusion with Russia. And so this guy is still pushing the envelope. He's still pushing the envelope. But I would ask Jake and CNN, why bring him on? You know what he is. He spent years lying to the American people, lying to the 17 or 18 viewers you have over there at CNN. That's what he did. That's what he does. I'll be right back. Folks, have you ever thought about what charities and causes you give your hard-earned money to? Pure Talk, my cell phone company, supports veterans. As a veteran-led company, that's their passion project. And that's why Pure Talk has slashed $10 million in veteran debt. That's why they donate tens of thousands of dollars every month to help prevent veteran suicide. That's why they donate $50,000 to MicroWorks, providing scholarships to veterans learning the trades after active duty. Now, isn't that a company you can get behind? Time to jump ship from these other three guys. There's a better option. Pure Talk gives you the same great coverage, America's most dependable 5G network, for half the cost. And you'll be supporting a company that is helping our vets. It's a win-win. Dial pound 250. Say keyword Mark Levin. You'll be connected to Pure Talk's U.S. call center. That's right. They invest in American jobs to better serve you. And remember, they're half the price of the big three. Go to puretalk.com/Levin today. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to a company that invests in American jobs to better serve you. Again, go to puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk, America's wireless company.
Mark Levin, America's passionately cerebral voice. Talk with that voice now. 877-381-3811.
You know, I'm a huge UFC fan, and Mr. Producer will tell you early on this program I used to talk about the UFC. I used to talk about pre-UFC. If you could find a channel on TV, remember those days, and it was pretty much in Nevada, Las Vegas area. They didn't have the fancy indoor stadiums. They didn't have any of that. And these guys fought with their fists. Remember I used to talk about this, Mr. Producer, a long time ago? Long time ago. And they didn't have weight classes either. You could have some big fat guys, 400 pounds, fighting some guys 198 pounds. And basically, it was on a stage that they would create right there, and they'd put the equivalent of chicken wire around it, the fencing around it. And it was very hard to watch, but I would watch it now and then because I watch things that people do, I've told you before, that I can't do. I can't build a house. I'll watch bricklayers. I'll watch roofers. I'll watch plumbers and electricians. And I just wonder at how they do it, or computer operators, all these, or a guy that drives an 18-wheeler. We were in Key West a year or two ago, my wife and I, and the streets are narrow, and he's turning the corner. How the hell did you do that? He said, practice makes perfect. He was very funny. By the way, I love Key West, but that's beside the point. Anyway, so I've come on this air, and I've talked about UFC over the years. And now everybody on radio talks about UFC. Have you noticed that, Mr. Producer? Everybody talks, I am a UFC guy. I fought in the UFC. I lift weights. I stand on my head. Wow. Okay. It's okay. I don't mind. Probably Bongino and I were the earliest, but I don't know. I just don't have time to listen to everybody. But I know when I used to talk about it on radio before Dan was on it, so nobody talked about it. I mean, you knew what the hell it was, so I loved it. So there's last night. No, I should say Saturday night. Get my nights all mixed up. Saturday night. And there is John Jones. Greatest fighter ever, heavyweight. He's been away for a long time for a variety of reasons. I remember him during the 2020 riots. When he ran out of his, I think it was a townhouse or his apartment, he ran onto the street and chased some guys away who were going to damage his car, and he was about to break their backs. And I loved it. So there's something about this guy. I really don't know. He really doesn't talk his politics. So Saturday night, he wins this fight against a good guy, by the way. But he wins the fight. And he comes over to President Trump. First of all, he does the Trump dance in the middle of the octagon. Then he walks over and he praises President Trump. He says, I was very, very nervous you were here. I wanted to do well. And he hands him the heavyweight belt. And I saw a smile on President Trump's face that I've never seen before. It was so broad. His smile was so happy because this is a genre that he loves. It's one I love too. I've never been to a fight, but I want to get to a fight. But I watch them on TV all the time. Pay-per-view, whatever it is, I don't care. I watch it. Because these guys are remarkable to me. They're unbelievable to me. I don't know how they do it. It's like the old Coliseum fights. You know, without the lions, obviously, but you know what I mean. And I was just so excited for the president. By the way, I saw a lot of people around him that probably have never been to a UFC fight in their lives, but that's okay. I'm a big Dana White fan. Big fan of all these people. They're very patriotic. You could see when he came into the stadium, it was just so loud cheering. And you can see that Joe Rogan is now a Trump guy, unless he becomes a Bernie Sanders guy again, but he was a Trump guy. He was there. It was just fantastic. You see these football players watching football over the weekend. They're doing the Trump dance. Now somebody's put a montage or collage of it together on the internet. And there's a lot of excitement in the air. Now the Democrats are going to do everything they can to sabotage Trump. And they're going to do it like they're earnest, you know? Like they're very serious about the qualifications of this guy, or Trump can't do that, or whatever. And I'm going to have to be the point of the spear fighting these people. I always am. I always will be, whether it's the law or anything else. Whether it's the law or anything else. Just the way I'm built. So I'm not around all the glitz. I remember the president said to me before, he said, you want to give me a call? You should come to Mar-a-Lago. I said, Mr. President, I'm just too busy. I can't come. People, like, they hang out there, Mr. President. They just stay there. They hang out. I get it. I do understand it. It's a beautiful place, wonderful people. But I don't know. It's something about it. I don't want to impose on people. It's not just the president, anybody. I don't impose. I have the number. I try not to use the number. I'll come from time to time if he wants me to come, that sort of thing. I just don't like the being a hanger-on. I just never have. So it's not to annoy him or to annoy anybody. Now you might say, well, you're the big Mark Levin. I don't view myself that way. I don't view myself as the big, all-powerful Mark Levin. I know what we're capable of here. I know what we've done in these variety of elections over the years. I know we've changed the nature of this format by promoting constitutional conservatives and constitutional conservatism and getting involved in primaries and generals. That never happened before on talk radio, ever. Zero. I know what we've done, but I don't sit around with a big head and say, wow, look what I've done. No, because I know it's you. It's always you. It's the audience. Otherwise, I'm a homeless guy talking to myself. Period. And just as I'll follow you anywhere, so many of you will follow me anywhere. And that's what's so fantastic about this relationship. And you know what? People don't get it. People who aren't involved in what we do in this big family we have, they'll never understand it. They'll just never understand it. They'll get burned if they screw around with us, but they don't understand it. As for the replacement, by the way, of Rubio, who's going to have to resign at some point to be Secretary of State, the governor of Florida has put out a statement that says, you know, we're looking at all options and all possibilities and so forth. And Rick Scott jumped in, the former governor of the Senate, and says, I back Lara Trump. You know, he probably ought to be quiet. It's really the governor's call. It's not really a matter of who somebody backs or doesn't back. I have no idea who he's going to pick. I don't really talk to Governor DeSantis. I don't have the foggiest idea. I don't really talk to any of these people. You want to know the truth. I have no idea. But he'll have some good choices, including her. I'm sure she would be a great senator, by the way. No question in my mind. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, have you ever thought about what charities and causes you give your hard-earned money to? Pure Talk, my cell phone company, supports veterans. As a veteran-led company, that's their passion project. And that's why Pure Talk has slashed $10 million in veteran debt. That's why they donate tens of thousands of dollars every month to help prevent veteran suicide. That's why they donate $50,000 to Micro Works, providing scholarships to veterans learning the trades after active duty. Now, isn't that a company you can get behind? Time to jump ship from these other three guys. There's a better option. Pure Talk gives you the same great coverage, America's most dependable 5G network, for half the cost. And you'll be supporting a company that is helping our vets. It's a win-win. Dial pound 250. Say keyword Mark Levin. You'll be connected to Pure Talk's U.S. call center. That's right. They invest in American jobs to better serve you. And remember, they're half the price of the big three. Go to puretalk.com/Levin today. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to a company that invests in American jobs to better serve you. Again, go to puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk, America's wireless company. And at that UFC fight Saturday night was Mike Johnson. I think Mike Johnson and Donald Trump really have gotten very close to each other. But in addition to MSNBC imploding, we hope, CNN imploding, we hope. And why do we hope? We want them to go away? No, we want them to clean up their damn act, to help the country with a real free press, real professionalism. Apparently the DNC is imploding. They're laying off hundreds of people, firing them, we like to call it. Not that we like it to happen, but it's happening. Lots of complaints about how the Harris campaign spent their money. Boy, did they blow money. New York Post, they blew $2.6 million on private jets in the final weeks of the campaign. They were spending money left and right. I hope donors keep this in mind. Next time around, she was a profligate spender. They all were. They raised money. They had more money than they knew what to do with. Unbelievable. Fired Democrats blast Daily Caller DNC after surprise layoffs, raising questions about the Harris campaign spending. Just like they spend in the government. That's Daily Caller. New York Post. Harris campaign blew $2.6 million on private jets in the final weeks of the campaign. People say over $1 billion. It was $1.2 billion. I remember after $1 billion, some guy gave him another $100 million or something. Silicon Valley. They throw out money left and right. Left and right. So it's quite incredible. So CNN's going to lay off people. MSNBC, Comcast, the rumors are trying to sell it. The DNC, nobody will buy that. Of course, it's not for sale, except to the highest donors. And they don't have any money. And so they're laying people off. It's just. I hate to say it, but what is it that Jeremiah Wright said? Chickens are coming home to roost. Now, don't let this deceive you. Don't let this confuse you, because these people never accept defeat. Whatever's happening to them, they'll fight with each other, but in the end, they're going to blame you. They're not circumspect. They don't even have a mirror. They're not going to look in the mirror. They're superior. They're masterminds. No matter what jobs they have, significant jobs, lowly jobs, doesn't matter. They're not going to give up. They just need a little bit of time. A little bit of Gestalt sessions, a little psychiatry here and there, and they'll be back. Uglier, meaner, sharper teeth than ever before, because they're going to blame you, the American people. You screwed them. The voter screwed them. The majority screwed them. The Electoral College screwed them, Right down the list. The constitutional system screwed them. The man, the system, the whole damn thing. And so they're not going to stop. Maybe there'll be a little respite, but they're not going to stop as they continue to try and steal the election in Pennsylvania. I heard one guy say today, well, it really wasn't a great landslide by Trump, and he's comparing it to Reagan and Goldwater and something else. Let me tell you something. The nation has changed significantly since Reagan. The demographics have changed significantly since Reagan. That's the truth. Our cities have changed. Our states have changed. It's not 1980 again. It's not 1980. It's not 44 years ago. The nation has had significant demographic and other changes. What Donald Trump did was a landslide by every interpretation, by every understanding of a landslide under current conditions. There's not another Republican that could have pulled off what he pulled off. That's a fact. I don't want to hear about Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley could not. She would not have brought in black voters. She would not have brought in Latino voters. She would not have been able to hold the base. She would have brought in the country club, wine and brie crowd of the Republican Party and the pro-radical abortion elements within the Republican Party, which is a minority. That's it. She would have gotten creamed. And Donald Trump did not want her involvement in his campaign, despite all the spin coming out of her now. He did not. He offered her an olive branch. But, I mean, he even offered, Sacco and Vanzetti, a.k.a. Mika and Joe Scarborough, an olive branch. Very magnanimous. More magnanimous than I would be, Mr. Producer, that's for sure. That's why I could never serve in a position like that. You calling me Hitler left and right? For 4 years? That doesn't fly. Then now they're all fighting for their survival. They'll eventually get back on their feet somewhere, somehow, some way. And then they're going to target him, they're going to target us, and it starts all over again. Remember, I'm explaining this, and that's what's going to happen. Don't fret. Be happy. You have a great Thanksgiving. I mean, you take your wins where you can, right? And this is a big one. This is a massive one. But we always keep one eye open, even when we sleep. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. A top Russian ballet star who slammed Putin's war plunged to his death, Mr. Producer. Have you noticed all the people who criticize Putin who jump out of buildings? Have you noticed this? It's a lot. One of the world's premier ballet dancers who performed around the world and was a fierce critic of his country's war in Ukraine has fallen 60 feet to his death, writes the Mirror. Vladimir, is everybody in Russia named Vladimir, by the way? Vladimir Shardaba had starred at the Metropolitan Opera in New York and the Royal Opera House in London. Also featured regularly in Munich at the invitation of Vladimir Putin's son-in-law, Igor Zelensky. Previously head of the Bavarian State Ballet, the second husband of the dictator's daughter, Katrina. Boy, all this inbred stuff going on. Report from a crime news agency claimed he had been leaping between two balconies on the 5th floor of his residential block in St. Petersburg. That's pretty normal, isn't it, Mr. Producer? Ballerinas leaping from, one balcony to another on the 5th floor of a building. That happens every day. Other reports from an unconfirmed law enforcement source said he had been locked in his apartment by his ex-wife, ballerina, in a bid to stop him buying drugs, and was running away after escaping the apartment when he fell. Well, what's he doing jumping off the balcony? Reports said he was suffering from previously unreported and unknown drugs and alcohol addiction. Yeah, this is a setup. This is what... Oh, he was on drugs. He was... his wife was upset with him. He was... he had to end his life. So how do they do it over? They jump out of a building. I'm never jumping out of a building. Are you, Mr. Producer? Doesn't that scare the hell out of you? Wait a minute. I'm just pointing this out, America. I'm not making light of it. It's just that a lot of people seem to die there by jumping out of the window. This is good news. Fox News, Trump said to lift all military restriction on Israel on first day in office, according to reports. Ceasefire deal between Israel and Lebanon said to be close to being finalized. Now, some of the tea leaves have been put out there. How accurate they are, I don't know, which is that Hezbollah has to disarm and leave Lebanon. Well, I hope that works, or at least move behind the line that the UN had set. And I'm sure Israel's intimately involved in this. Amid escalating tensions between Hezbollah and Israel, President Trump has promised to lift all restrictions and delays on the supply of military equipment and ammunition to Israel immediately after his inauguration. Israeli Channel 12 reports. The assurance from Trump's team came as Israel is considering a 60-day ceasefire with Hezbollah, which would provide a window until Trump takes office and implements the promised changes. Sources indicate that this commitment from Trump's administration clarifies Israel's willingness to temporarily halt military actions with the understanding that support will resume without delay once Trump is in office. Unnamed Israeli officials had confirmed the reports from Israeli media to Fox News Digital. I guarantee you they're doing the Trump dance over there in Israel. Currently, U.S. restrictions include an embargo on certain weapon shipments, limitations on various combat-related equipment, even if they do not involve explosive ordnance. This embargo has impacted Israel's defense capabilities, especially as the military now contends with active fronts in Lebanon and Gaza, requiring strict control over ammunition and supply use. We've never had an administration that actually choked off an ally like this, Israel, in the middle of a war. We've never had anything like this. Now, the pledge to lift all military supply restrictions starting from Trump's first day in office would allow Israel to replenish its stockpiles and alleviate current constraints. With the 60-day ceasefire, Israel aims to temporarily suspend hostilities until the new administration takes office, enabling a resumption of full military operations if necessary without existing limits. And that's where Iran comes in. So Israel's looking not short-term, not long-term, but mid-term here. They know what they have to do. Last week, the U.S. ambassador to Lebanon submitted a draft truce proposal to Lebanon's Speaker of the Parliament to halt fighting between the armed group Hezbollah and Israel, two political sources told Reuters without revealing details. But the IDF is increasing military pressure in Lebanon, operating along the second line of villages to further diminish Hezbollah's capabilities. IDF spokesperson Brigadier General Daniel Hagari commented on the truce negotiations. He said the IDF's role is to clear out terrorist infrastructure in southern Lebanon, ensure that Hezbollah cannot threaten Israeli citizens from there, meaning shooting these endless missiles. This is our duty. We must create the conditions that enable the political echelon to take diplomatic action. So, let's see here. Amit Siegel, chief political analyst, Channel 12, he added that a ceasefire with Lebanon at this stage signals that Israel's northern objectives have been met, effectively decoupling the northern and southern fronts. While there may be progress toward calm in the north, he clarified this development does not extend to Gaza and so forth. Also turns out, in Israel's attack on Iran, that they did in fact hit a significant nuclear site, Mr. Producer. Although they didn't take out their nuclear program, they took out a significant site, and that was intentional. I'm sure they would have liked to have done more, but they weren't able to do more. And on his way out the door in the last 48 hours, just so you know, Joe Biden has put sanctions on more Israelis who live in Judea and Samaria. Now, we've never had a country, certainly not this one, that projects sanctions on the citizens of other countries. We're not talking about oligarchs or people in the government. We're talking about citizens, regular citizens. Because if they're activists to protect Judea and Samaria and to protect their homes and their developments and their communities, they're not settlers. They live in developments. They have real homes. They have real communities and neighborhoods, some of which have been there for thousands of years, others which have been there, in the past 50 or 70 years, as they've been built. Limitations in their own country. We've never seen anything like this before, but they're literally putting sanctions on citizens who live in these communities and these developments in Judea and Samaria if they're activists. They haven't even done anybody harm if they're activists. So this administration has done things that no administration has ever done, and it's quite appalling. As we look at foreign policy here, Joe Biden lifts ban on Ukraine using U.S. weapons to strike deep inside Russian territory. It's 190 miles inside. It's where Russia is training the North Korean troops, in particular, on a particular base there. And, of course, I hear all my friends going, oh, my God, this is World War III. All right, look. A couple of things here. Russia's getting the help from North Korean ground troops, thousands of them. Russia's getting armaments from China. Russia's getting advanced drones, the technology they stole from us during the Clinton administration when one of the drones crashed. massive amounts, unlimited amounts of killer drones that just plow in the houses and buildings and other buildings from the Iranians. That's Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia against Ukraine. This could start World War III. Hello, the pre-war conditions are already here, as General Keane and I discussed the other weekend. Now, this is the difference between Donald Trump and all the people who think they know how Donald Trump thinks, whether they're on TV, radio, or just posting. Donald Trump, regardless of what the left says and regardless of what the isolationists say in our own party, does not want Russia to defeat Ukraine. He does not want Russia to steal most of Ukraine's territory. He does not want Ukraine to surrender most of its territory. Ukraine may have to give up some of its territory. He understands that. But he wants Ukraine to get in the best position possible when it comes to negotiating. And he wants Ukraine to be as strong as possible when it comes to negotiating, so Russia has something to negotiate. The Russians are losing upwards of 1,000 to 2,000 men a day. That's why they need the North Korean troops. So Trump knows what he's doing. Trump knows what he believes. Trump knows what he wants to accomplish. But the people who claim to speak for him on TV and radio, they don't know a foggy thing. They don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. What Biden has just allowed Ukraine to do, quote unquote, he should have allowed them to do 6 months ago. Then Ukraine would have been in a much better position, a much stronger position, with Trump coming in to resolve this. Excuse me. If Russia feels it's going to win and it's gaining more ground, it'll have no reason to resolve it. So these lunkheads running around like World War III, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. If Ukraine is weak, there will be World War III. Countries around Ukraine right now are worried about nuclear war. They were worried about nuclear war a month ago. Article 5, you could trigger the whole damn thing in World War III. I'm the peacenik. I'm the one who wants peace, not them, not the big mouths. They don't even know what the hell they're talking about. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Welcome back, America. We have Salena Zito with us, our good friend. She's from Pennsylvania. You know, Salena, I'm from Pennsylvania, too. Did you know that?
I did know that. This is why I love you.
Wow, likewise. But, you know, I'm from southeastern Pennsylvania. Montgomery County was rock-solid Republican when I was growing up. Now it's rock-solid Democrat. Big changes in that state, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think about it, Western Pennsylvania was the home of the New Deal Democratic Coalition.
You're right.
This was the working class, steel workers, manufacturing, jobs like that, welders, whatever. It still has a hardcore population of that. However, now the working class is now the Republican Party is the party of work. And the Democrats have become the party of the elite, which live mostly in the suburbs of Montgomery County.
And what's interesting is, back then, the suburbs were Republican. The 5 big counties, they would always neutralize Philly and back and forth. And we'd always get, not always, but often, get people elected from that part of the state, western part of the state, now and then central, because the southeast part would neutralize itself. But it's different. You're right. The state has changed a lot. Now, we have a governor there who is touted as a presidential candidate. Honestly, he's a very weak governor. I've been watching. He has signed fewer bills than any governor in modern history during the same period of time. I believe they lost the state assembly, didn't they? Didn't they go Republican this election?
The state house, they have a 1-seat majority, but the state senate, they have kept. The Republicans have kept a solid majority in the state senate. They did some redistricting 2 years ago and have made it virtually impossible for Republicans to get the House back. There were some really heavy-handed actions done by the Democratic, by commission. It was done by commission, and almost all the members of the commission were Democrats.
They all look at the model in California, and they all try and copy it because, you know, you have what are effectively statewide, what I call Praetorian elections. You have an election, but the Republicans can never win because they changed the system, they changed the population, they've changed everything for the party. I worry about Pennsylvania in that regard, but I'm now worried about Bucks County. Bucks County, again, beautiful county, very nice place. I mean, really is. It's a back and forth with the Republicans and the Democrats, fairly moderate county, but you have a board of commissioners, 3 members, 2 Democrats, 1 Republican, and the Democrats have basically said, screw you, state Supreme Court. We will count these ballots that aren't signed, that aren't dated on the envelopes, even though the Democrat majority Supreme Court now has said twice you can't do that, right?
Yeah. So did you read the ruling today at all, Mark?
No.
But so the state Supreme Court, which is 5-2 Democrat majority, these are not conservative jurists. However, they are so pissed off. Excuse my cable news, my language. They are so pissed off about that's happening in Bucks and Montgomery County and Center County that they wrote the ruling in all caps.
Jeez. For even the hard to read.
It was so funny. And David Wecht, who is the son of the late Cyril Wecht, the great forensic pathologist, wrote unequivocally, cut it out. Stop it.
And he's a liberal.
And then, he is a proud liberal.
Big time.
And I don't know if you saw the breaking news tonight, but Mark Elias and the Casey campaign filed a lawsuit to have these ballots counted.
Well, what'd they do? Go to federal court? There's nowhere else to go in the state.
Yeah. So here's what I think, and this is to your earlier point that you made about California and trying to change the state by, through redistricting. Well, they're also trying to. They can't win this. Okay. However, what they're trying to do, I think, Mark, is set precedents and weaken and dilute Pennsylvania voting laws. But they can't do it by legislation, so they're doing it through. They're trying to do it through these commissioners and through the courts, and because Casey, no matter what, even if they win every illegal ballot, even if they expand all their options on every illegal ballot, the number still isn't there. Casey will still win by 15,000. I mean McCormick will still win by 15,000. So then you have to think, okay, logically, what are they doing?
Well, this is a very big point you're making, actually, very important point. So they're trying to enshrine through their illegality and dumb down this whole process where in the future, defective votes by mail, envelopes no date or the wrong date, not signed, will be counted.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
I think you're right.
There's no other logical explanation for this. And they're trying to strengthen the ability to harvest ballots.
It's just incredible. And, of course, where's the national media? I didn't see any Sunday show. Maybe you did. I didn't. Where they're saying they won't accept the outcome of the election. They're trying to overturn all that crap they threw at Trump. Notice. And the governor, I saw that mealy-mouthed statement he put out. He's a lawyer. That is a dumb statement. That people are confused. No, they're not. That's why the court did it in capitals and said,
it's very, very disappointing. I have covered Josh Shapiro for 20 years, and he is usually at least a pretty good political athlete, and he has fallen on his sword on this, and it is embarrassing to where he's placed himself in this whole situation.
Salena Zito, stay with me. I want to continue this and continue to focus on him because that statement he put out was an abomination. What he needs to do is tell them to cut it out, and he won't do it. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Salena Zito is not only a very, very nice lady, very knowledgeable, knows all about Pennsylvania, longtime Trump supporter, if I may say so. And we met a long time ago. I remember reading your articles, maybe interviewing you from time to time. And then we were at some place, I don't remember what it is, but it's in my mind's eye, where you called out my name and I came over. Do you remember where that was? I don't even remember.
I do remember where that was. It was one of the rare times I was in Washington, D.C., and I was some kind of, I think the media something had a dinner, an award dinner.
Media Research Center?
Yeah. You were there, and Rush Limbaugh was being honored.
Yeah.
And you were standing outside, and I called over your name because I've always been a fan of yours. And the paper that I worked at the time was owned by Richard Mellon-Scape, who was always a friend of yours.
Yes.
And that's how we met in person.
I was nice, right?
It was wonderful. It was freezing outside, and yet we stood out there and talked for like 20 minutes.
That's great. People think I'm going to bite their head off, the audience. What are you going to? No, I don't bite people unless they deserve it.
No, you're a teddy bear.
Yeah, I'm pretty easy.
You're pretty nice. You're pretty awesome.
Let me ask you, this, Salena. Is this guy Josh Shapiro, maybe he is right now on some kind of popularity high, but you've covered him. You know, I'm from Cheltenham. He was in Abington. I know what kind of Democrat we're talking about here. He was probably much more moderate when he was in the State House. Then he becomes commissioner, and then he becomes attorney general, and now he is what he is. But is he really that impressive? I'm not impressed by the guy.
Well, here's where he's been impressive to voters. So this will make you understand.
I mean, he ran against let's be honest, he ran against a total loser. I'm just being honest.
Yeah, completely. I mean, Doug Mastriano's team had me thrown out of an event.
There you go.
But
to throw you out of an event, you really got to be pretty low for them to do that. I mean, they have to be pretty low.
Or maybe I'm pretty low.
No, you're not.
So here's where he's been impressive. Now, you have to remember a little bit of let's think of the backstory. We had 8 years of Tom Wolfe, and we almost died of boredom. And he really didn't do anything. 4 years of it were almost entirely under COVID, right? And he just never came out of his house. We really didn't have much of anything. So, you know, he gets into office and he does two things quickly and there impressively. He shows up and handles what happens on the border of East Palestine and Darlington, Pennsylvania, right? East Palestine is on the border of the state. He shows up and he comes with reinforcements. That was impressive. And people appreciated it. He had money, he had resources, and he showed up several times. The second thing he did well was I-95. When that ramp collapsed, he showed up again. He showed up with a bunch of Teamsters to fix the bridge. And visually, it was very, very impressive, but also he got it done. So, you know, after
So he'd be a great Secretary of Transportation between the train and the road. He'd be better than Buttigieg. Yeah.
Right? And so you have to think about why he comes across as so impressive to voters is because the comparison to what they had was so weak. Right? So you have to, that's what gives him that high popularity among voters. Now, he's never had to really face something that he hasn't risen to the occasion to. It's easy, as silly as this sounds, because Biden couldn't do it, but it's easy to show up at a disaster, 2 disasters in a row. It's easy to do that, and he did it. Now, this thing is murky for him politically. Him and Casey share a strategist. They are both Democrats, and he's put in a really, honestly, I think Casey has put him in a bad position, and to date, Shapiro has not risen to the occasion in the way that voters expect him to. And I see among Republicans, there are plenty of Trump-Shapiro voters in Pennsylvania. Plenty of them. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Shapiro won a ton of red counties. Remember, he was running against Mastriano. And so this has weakened him in their eyes because he hasn't done the same thing that he has done before when situations have called on him to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
very interesting.
That right there is his challenge.
Now let me ask you this. I've disagreed with people on this. They say if he were on the ticket with Harris, I mean, Harris could have won the state. I don't think so. I think Trump had a big wave election and nobody was going to stop him.
Nobody was going to stop Trump. And Shapiro, to be honest, he has a unique brand. His brand is very, very different than Harris's brand. They differed on way too many things that are important to Pennsylvania voters, in particular on agriculture and energy. And so she would have dragged him down. He would not have been able to lift her up. In other words, she would have hurt him.
So he's lucky she didn't pick him because it could have destroyed his potential presidential ambitions.
Or maybe he turned her down. You know, there's speculation about that.
Oh, really?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. There's been plenty of stories speculating that he had made it became apparent that it didn't seem like it was a good fit for him.
One more before we go. Fetterman. Fetterman is probably more popular than he's ever been in the state, isn't he?
Yes, that's true. And while he was on CNN on Sunday, he was asked about the Casey thing. He kind of meandered on it. Mm-hmm. Today he took a different turn. Today
really?
He said he was asked by a reporter, and he said something to the effect. I'm paraphrasing here.
Mm-hmm.
Something to the effect that Casey will end up doing the right thing. Again, to the point I made earlier, there are no votes. There's no magic votes. There's no more votes for Casey. No matter how much it's counted and recounted, there's no more votes for Casey.
I just don't understand how these commissioners get away with it. To be perfectly honest with you, as a lawyer, as a Philadelphia lawyer myself,
yeah,
that court should have put out an order and directed it, among others, the commissioners in Bucks County, you say Montgomery too, and those whatever. And if they failed to follow the order, they should have held them in contempt. And if they keep counting, you send them to jail. Right now, there's no consequences for any of this.
And that's the problem today. And that is part of the problem of the overall rejection of Democrats in this election cycle is that the Democrats have let the idea or the ideal of consequences on numerous fronts fall to the wayside. And that has become very unpopular with the American people. And it's part of why Republicans won.
Yeah, it makes sense. All right. So, and by the way, this Dave McCormick is a very classy guy. Really smart. Yeah. He's accomplished. He ran a hell of a campaign. And I think Josh Shapiro at some point better watch out for him because this guy's the real deal, don't you think?
Dave McCormick is very much the real deal. I remember sitting with him just 2 weeks after he lost that primary race and interviewing him, and I said, "You thinking about doing this again?" And I could see in his eyes, I could see that calculation. He's like, probably. and that's a hard thing to say.
Yeah.
Just 2 weeks after losing by 700 votes.
Yeah. And you know what? They did the recount. He never whined about it. They did the very best they could. None of this stuff was going on, counting illegal votes and so forth.
Nope.
So if people want to follow you, they go to SalenaZito.com, yes?
Yes, SalenaZito.com. And can I make a shameless plug?
Of course. And by the way, Mr. Producer, put that on all our, sites, please. Go ahead.
My shameless plug is people can pre-order my book, Butler, The Untold Story of the day the president was shot. And
when does that come out?
What happened is, it's coming out on the anniversary of the assassination attempt. If people don't know this, I was 4 feet away from the president.
Oh, my God.
When that happened, I was, through a series of circumstances, I was standing in the, all caused by President Trump, by the way. I was standing 4 feet away from him in the buffer with my daughter. I was set to fly from Butler to Bedminster with him to do an interview on that day. And he called me the next morning. The first thing out of his mouth was, "Are you okay? Is your daughter okay?" And we talked a lot about faith, about an act of God, the hand of God, and just covering the whole election from Pennsylvania, and understanding that he was going to win that. He was going to win. It's a really, really compelling story. I hope people buy it. It's just called Butler.
Well, we're going to help you, Mr. Producer. Let's lock in as early as we can here, Salena, to do the book. Yeah, but you got to sign it. These people, they have their publicists send me a book. They don't sign it. I throw it away. It's like, okay,
what do you... all my books.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, you're terrific, and we appreciate you. We'll have you back when your book comes out. We want to hear all about it. And people don't realize, I think our listeners do, but a lot of people don't realize what a decent human being Donald Trump is. When you get to know him, when he talks to you through events like you were just talking about, he's not focused on fame. He's not focused on fortune. He's not focused on politics. He's focused on the person right in front of them,
Oh, as soon as he saw me that day in Butler, 5 minutes before he was shot, the first thing he said was, "How is Eleonora, Milo, Rocco, and Louisa?" He remembered all four of my grandchildren's names. All four of them. And people can get to read about him chasing me around with a can of hairspray. That was pretty
Well, that I got to read. Okay. By the way, you won't find any hairspray in my bathroom. So,
I don't have any hairspray either, but for complete...
No, I don't have any hair.
Reasons. You don't have any hair. I have too much.
Well, my wife has hair, though. She is. All right, anyway. Salena,
Thanks, Mark.
You're a lot of fun. You're really a font of enormous amount of information about the Keystone State. We really appreciate it. Take care of yourself. We're going to have you back soon.
Sounds great. Have a great evening.
All right, you too. God bless. Is she not the nicest person, Mr. Producer? Really nice. A real journalist, by the way. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The show is over already. Can you believe that, Mr. Producer? It went fast. I think I'm going to have to lobby for a fourth hour. You think WABC will give me a fourth hour? No, I don't want to upset O'Reilly. Or what about the rest of the country? I'm just kidding. Relax. But all that said, I greatly appreciate you folks here. I know how blessed I am to be with you. I'm blessed that there are other formats that have been invented through technologies, the podcast formats, satellite formats, streaming formats, YouTube, and all the rest. Thank God. But most of all, thank you. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, our brothers and sisters in Israel, and most of all, you, the red-blooded American people. Thank you for saving our country, for God's sakes. And I will see you tomorrow. Be well.